Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Networking gets a bad rap, right? I'll just throw that right out there, that networking gets a bad rap. And, certainly in my organization, AmSpirit Business Connections, it doesn't, because that's why people are there, because they want to network. Likewise, you go to networking events and people will be okay with networking because, well, that's why they're there networking, right? You don't go to a bar and have people concerned about the consumption of alcohol or smoking or flirting or whatever it is, because that's why they're there. So they're obviously somewhat fans to the whole notion that drinking and smoking and talking with people of the opposite sex or maybe the same sex, who knows, doesn't matter, but that's just part of why they're there. And so when people are at networking functions or when people are at trade shows, when people are at organizations like AmSpirit Business Connections, they don't have a problem with networking. But when you talk to other people about networking, right away you kind of get that sense that they're bristling a little bit with respect to what networking can and can be doing and what they should be doing. And I really think that the biggest problem to that is that in their minds, networking and prospecting and sales are all the same thing. That's how they view networking. And so when they hear the term networking, they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be pitted against somebody who wants to sell me something I don't need, right? Try and convince me that, I need this special kind of insurance for this particular loss that I didn't even know I was in risk of. And so they don't want to network as a result. But when I talk to people about networking, I talk about the entire universe of networking. And I've really gotten back into thinking about this. I talk about it all the time, but it really was top of mind over the weekend because I was working on a webinar for a gentleman I know, Tad Stevens. Now, Tad is, I give my daughter a lot of credit for getting me podcasting because she kind of set me up with all the nuts and the bolts that I needed to get going, and has really helped me produce shows and just understanding how it all works. And she explored it and explained it to me, and it's helped lots of other people with that as well. But the reason I got into networking, what prompted me to turn to my daughter Logan and say, "Hey, I need help," was Tad. And how this all came about is Tad is somebody who's very prolific in helping people build funnels and was helping me build a funnel for recruiting for franchisees for AmSpirit Business Connections. And in my mind, it didn't really make sense, but I kind of went along with it. But at one point, we had a conversation as to what my issues were and what I wanted to try and accomplish. And I said, I want to just share good information about networking. He said, well, you're talking about a podcast. And that led me into turning to my daughter, who was interning with me at the time, and saying, hey, how can I put a podcast together? And I was leaving for a week to go on a business trip. She stuck behind, and she pretty much just gave me a whole blueprint. This is what we need to do. We're going to download this, and this. But anyhow, just that's how I've come to know Tad, and we've done a number of things through the years, and he's had me help him, which helps me put together these webinars, which he goes out and he sells, and he cuts me in a royalty. Neither here nor there. But one of the ones I'm working on, I talk about the universe of networking, and basically driving home the point that networking is so much more than prospecting and sales. Prospecting and sales is just a tiny, tiny piece of networking. And so, so there's always the question, well, when shouldn't you be networking? Well, let me think about this. When you're posting content online, well, that's networking. So yeah, you should be networking when you're, on social media, that's a great place to be networking. Because what is networking? It's two or more people working towards their mutual benefit. So you're sharing information on social media. That's networking. You're building a relationship. When you're commenting on somebody's post, hey, congratulations, Johnny just graduated high school or college. Well, that's networking. You're building relationship. So certainly, you know, posting online, being online is networking. Networking's fair game. I don't think anybody would have an issue with that. Socializing with friends and family. Is that networking? Well, is it two or more people working towards their mutual benefit? You care about your friends, you care about your family. I'm not suggesting that you need to be selling them with respect to what you're doing. Um, but here's the reality is that if you're helping other people and helping them get what they need, helping them however they need to be helped, they're going to come to know you, like you, and trust you, and they're going to want to find ways to help you in return. Maybe not everybody. There's always those people who are really kind of focused in on themselves. But for the most part, you're going to be out there helping people and your friends, your family, and they're going to want to help you in return. So networking certainly can happen amongst your friends and family when you're socializing. How about your daily interactions to and from work or when you're at work? Should you be networking? Um, certainly to or from work, and obviously we all live in different worlds. But if you're living in a bigger city and you have this commute um, on mass transit, you're running into the same people. Is there a problem with talking to somebody that you see every day, especially if it's a professional environment? You're with another person who's walking into the same big building you are. You know that they have some sort of professional job in that big building that you're in as well. And there are buildings in New York, Chicago, L.A., Houston, some of these larger cities that are that have their own zip codes. The Twin Towers, I guess, each had their own zip code. I mean, they were cities unto themselves. Um, and so, is there a problem with networking in those situations? Now, I don't live in a big city, but I would think, yeah, there's probably merit in knowing who that person is and just getting a sense as to what they're about. I see you get off on the 50th floor every day. What do you do for, name the company? They're going to share. Who knows what comes from that? I'm not saying you need to pitch them, um, but developing a relationship and learning about people and finding ways that you can help other people. So is that off the table as far as networking? I would think not. You know, I tell the story all the time about talking to my parking lot attendant and how that turned into the opportunity to be an extra in the movie The Shawshank Redemption. That was networking. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't look at it that way, but I developed a relationship. It was what we'll call what I've termed in another earlier podcast episode, um, a 10-second relationship. Hey, how's your kids? How's your daughter doing? How's your granddaughter doing? That was it, and it turned into an opportunity to be an extra in a movie. Now, what did that do for my career? Arguably nothing. But not everything in life is focused on career. It's really about happiness and having experiences. And I had a unique experience that a lot of people can't say they've had. So those interactions to and from work, however that manifests itself. And there are people out there that work at home. They get up, they walk across the hall, they go to their home office. They might be wearing sweatpants, and there's a lot of that. But you're still out there and you're still interacting with people. Certainly when you're at work, it's good to be networked and kind of knowing what's going on. Obviously, everybody's at a particular company is all pulling in the same direction. But it's good to know of other job openings at a particular company. Hey, we're looking for somebody to fill this role. My son was telling me he had lunch with a former boss. Former boss had an employee resign. That former boss said, hey, if you're interested, there's a position and it pays a lot more than you're making now. Now, he's not interested in the position because his mind is set in a different direction as to what he wants to know, but that's networking. And my son might know of somebody that could fill that role. Uh, who knows? But it's networking. So getting to know people at work, again, it's two more people working towards their mutual benefit. Um, who knows? Now that I think about that conversation, I should reach out to my son and say, okay, can you give me particulars on the position? I might know somebody. Um, community involvement, being involved in the community, you know, that's networking. Is it okay to network? Is it okay to learn about people? You're all pulling together to make something happen in the community, whatever it might be. Beautifying a neighborhood. Finding out about people. And again, I'm not saying pitch your neighbor on life insurance or something like that, but getting to know people and understanding what they're about. They have a house. How do they pay for it? There's a way. They pay for it. Just understanding what that's about, and maybe there's a way. Maybe you're having a conversation with that neighbor and they've been downsized, and that former boss who's looking for somebody to fill a particular role they would be perfect for. That's networking. So there's really nothing wrong with kind of networking when you're in and around, your community. Volunteering. That's a biggie. I tout that all the time, that we need to use volunteer opportunities as a means to try and grow our networks. I have this monthly call called the Charitable Roundtable. I've put it together. I volunteer my time for it. I underwrite a lot of the costs for it. It's kind of my baby from a volunteer standpoint. I meet a lot of people, and a lot of people know what I do professionally. A lot of those people have found podcasts for me to be on, find ways for me to help others. So out volunteering is another place that you can be networking. And there are certainly lots of stories of people who are out networking, and people come to know them and like them and trust them. In fact, I did a whole podcast on this a few weeks ago, maybe it was a month or so ago, on volunteering and how it's a great opportunity to kind of get yourself out there rubbing elbows with people. How about your personal interests, your hobbies? Well, golfing. We all think of golfing as networking, right? What about fishing? Going fishing. Quilting. My stepmom, she's really big into quilting and goes to these conferences and gets to meet people all across the country who are also into quilting. And we think of quilters as being these, grandmother figures that's all they ever do. My stepmom has a PhD in statistics, and for a long time, she's now retired, had a very, very promising career in the pharmaceutical industry. And a lot of the other quilters, similar story. They just liked quilting. So, it was a common interest. So certainly being involved with with those sorts of things is an opportunity to kind of get to know people. Again, everybody's got lives. Everybody has a house that they're trying to pay for, a car they're trying to pay for, and so they're doing something with respect to that. So you can certainly just talk to people about things and find ways that you can help them. You just never know where someone else's need can be filled by what someone else wants. Again, going back to my example, my son's former boss needs a role filled, and if you know about those two pieces, somebody who could fill the role and somebody who needs the role, putting those two things together is very helpful. And then in return, they're going to look for opportunities to help you. Obviously, civic organizations or Rotary, Kiwanis. They're really not for networking per se, but networking happens. You spend time in the Lions Club or the Rotary or the Kiwanis or the Moose Lodge or whatever, and you can't help but get to know, like, and trust those people. And the opportunity is going to come up to talk about who you are and what you do. That's why people do those things. They certainly have a civic mind set. They want to help the community, but there's also a longer term play with respect to it as well. Organizations like AmSpirit obviously are for that. So I'm trying to think of a place where networking doesn't come into play. At church, It's about getting to know, like, and trust people. It's two or more people working towards a mutual benefit. I know lots of people through church. Find out about what they're doing. I find out ways they can help. I can help them. They find out ways they can help me. It's just about having relationships. So there's really not a place. There's really not a place that you can't or shouldn't be networking, as long as it's tasteful. I'm not saying going and starting to prospect the person who sits next to you in church every week. Obviously, if they need what you do and approach you, then great. But other than that, don't be terribly concerned about it. Or I shouldn't say don't be terribly concerned about it, but don't feel like there's anything wrong with talking to people, asking how are things going? How's the economy treating, business? Are you looking to retire? At a funeral, right? Oh, certainly you shouldn't be networking at a funeral. You know what? You show up at a funeral, you reconnect with people. People need help. It's a great time to help people. And when you help people, they're going to want to help you in return. So when is the time when you should never, ever, ever be networking? The answer is there isn't a time. You should always be looking for places to help other people. Always be looking to benefit somebody, and just know that when you benefit somebody, they're going to want to help you in return. And it might not always be exactly what you're looking for. I'm not saying that they're going to, give you that six-figure job or, that contract for your business. But you just never know where those things are going to go. You just never know. So the total universe of networking is really broad. It's really, really broad. You just need to open your heart and your mind and your attitude to the notion that it is, and that every opportunity to interact with other people is an opportunity to be networked and to further yourself.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.